And at the golf course, there was an employee, his name was Chris Smith, who said that he had heard something, fly overhead. And he said there was what he thought was a sonic boom and this and that. And another employee, I think it was American Free Press, they didn't name him, but another employee said that he had seen a large silver plane pass overhead over Indian Lake as well, which goes back to Jim Stopp, who we got from Tribune Review, saying that he saw Flight 93 fly overhead again.
But Jim Stopp has never been found again.
No, I've tried to track this guy down for 3 years. And I imagine somebody pretty much because he was such a public, his name was out there and everything else, his phone was probably ringing for days after this happened. Someone probably just moved him, gave him some money, shut up and go away. I can't find him.
All right, but in the interviews that, again, that came that day and the next day, Flegel's mentioned in the New York Times reports and such, but Stopp's not. That doesn't happen.
Correct.
But here's the thing. Nobody really... All right, now let's go back to that day, the next day. The reason I say this is because I think Flegel got a little bit expansionary with his recounting of what happened that day. If we go back to just what took place and the accounts we got, on Wednesday and Thursday, nobody really saw anything overfly the marina. They said they heard sounds and felt reverberations and came outside.
Yeah, they heard the engines roar.
All right, now that's the very first day or two. All right, now, just to let you talk to this also, if we separate that, do you find that Flegel and others started to say that he actually saw stuff?
No. What they saw is Flegel and Brandt and them. They saw the white plane afterwards. Now, John had agreed to meet me, and I was going to document his story and ask him more in detail and get his account. I'd spoken to him a couple of times, and he was willing to do this. It's been financial on my end why I haven't been able to follow up with him and get his account documented. But I have reason to believe that what they saw was the larger white plane that other witnesses described, and not the little one, because they were 3 miles away. So by the time they got there, the little one most likely had already left the scene. And I doubt with the layout of the land they were able to see it, although it's possible because they saw the smoke, so they were able to drive to the crash site. And we know the little plane was directly above it, and he said immediately afterwards he saw a white plane, but he couldn't make out what it was. And he said the guy, whoever was piloting it was smart because they flew off in the direction of the sun, so you couldn't really stare at the plane.
All right, but here's the big mystery. There's no doubt that flaming debris or garbage fell into Indian Lake Marina. There's no doubt. I mean, I think we all agree that that's pretty substantiated. But it doesn't make sense that it would come from 93, which supposedly dropped in the ground, what would you say, about a mile a mile west-northwest of Indian Lake Marina.
Actually, I'd say, even going the way the crow flies, it's probably like 3 miles.
Okay, all right, good deal.
Yeah.
I'm working on, what I'm looking at with the index from Google. But the thing is, it's that, and here's where it gets interesting, and let me just go into this. I'm looking for this now, because this makes no sense. I mean, this is in one story. This is from the Tribune Review off mypittsburghlive.com, and it talked about somebody whose son found some, garbage from 93. Mm-hmm. The second graph reads, Dominic, a southeasterly wind and a 3-year-old's keen eye brought the crash of United Airlines Flight 93 home to a family in a tiny New Baltimore borough more than 8 miles from the Somerset County crash site. Now, here's the problem. I think it's your understanding and it's mine. When you don't get any other descriptions about where wind comes from, when they give you a direction, it's where the wind comes from. If it's a southeasterly wind, it's coming from the southeast. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So if that's the way that they stated here, wherever they tell you what the wind is, according to the Weather Channel and everything else, it's where it's coming from. So here we got a southeasterly wind. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
All right. So a southeasterly wind brought this crap How in the world could that happen? Because the southeasterly wind is from below New Baltimore. All right, it gets better. Later on in the same article, it said, late yesterday afternoon, however, FBI Special Agent Bill Crowley, did you ever have the pleasure to meet him?
No, not yet.
Wing TV did. It wasn't good.
I bet.
All right. He said, Crowley said, experts from the National Transportation Safety Board had checked weather reports and determined that lightweight materials might well have traveled over the mountain by a southwest wind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That reached 9 knots. Okay, fine.
I mean, and when you start breaking that down and you're looking at it and you're thinking about Mel and stuff like that, like we discussed with the layout and all the trees, I mean, the obstacles in the way, this stuff's blowing up a hill, down a hill, up a hill, around trees, through the woods. I mean, it's amazing because it's supposed to be leaving the ground, in Shanksville, because it can't leave the plane while the plane is airborne, because how would that happen? So you got it from Shanksville blowing across the ground through all this. It's physically impossible. And then you got Wally Miller's account. See, this is what else is fascinating. Yeah. When you look, if you go look at the crash site, the explosion takes place. You can see a blast trajectory going into the woods, and it's going.
That's right.
It's going to the southwest. I mean, it looks like an arrowhead. It comes to a point. You can draw a straight line and make that, the way the trees are burned, you can make it an arrow. Well, and that tells you where the object, whatever hit there, came from, which is contradicting the Flight 93.
Let me just hold you right there. You were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. As what people have said is there is what you would call, at this time, of course, time has gone by, but there was singed verdure, trees, fauna, all that other stuff, flora, rather. And so there was marks that stuff had been burnt.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for that signature to have happened, where would the element have come from to make that happen? From what direction?
It would have to come from the northeast. Because, the blast trajectory into the woods goes to the southwest. We know the plane that all these people saw was coming out of the northwest. So that there eliminates it as a possibility right there, just looking at it physically. Then you look at where Indian Lake and New Baltimore is, and you compare it to the blast trajectory into the woods, and it's two different directions.
It's away.
And then you look at my interview with Wally Miller. Wally Miller draws a line. He's drawing the crash site for me on this folder, and he's laying out how the blast trajectory went into the woods and this and that. And he draws a line on the east side of the crash, and he says there was nothing over here. Not a thing. Which is off towards the direction of Indian Lake. And then he starts to argue with me about where Indian Lake is. He's, no, Indian Lake's in the direction of the blast trajectory. I'm like, no, it's southeast of the crash site. It's the other way. He's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, I'm not even going to argue with him.
No, you can't.
Anyone can look at a map and see.
No, that's what we're asking people to do. You can check us ours, but you can go also, folks. Go yourself. Don't take what we got. Go take a look for yourself.
Absolutely.
And find out that this doesn't make sense. So in other words, really, whatever overflew, if anything overflew Indian Lake Marina, was not 93. It might have been something else. And here we go to the point where it's like, well, if they had debris in the lake, where did that debris come from? And now that gets to be a nettlesome problem. But one, we don't have a breakup of 93. What are the chances? I know I'm asking you also for speculation, and I'm sure you've heard this before. But do we have something that dumps out shit?
It's possible. I haven't found anyone who witnessed that, just like I haven't found anyone who can tell me they witnessed Flight 93 losing debris. Just like I can't find anybody to tell me that they saw plane debris floating up in the air or flying to Indian Lake.
But so what's key here is, and this is also, sometimes I wonder if the government thought they really screwed up big time, which would make Bush come on and say something that I think, I found just stultifying, and that is, let us not, countenance 9/11 conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I'm like, why the hell would you even talk about that?
Yeah, why are you so worried about that?